Poor black waitress, help old lady, not knowing her millionaire son is watching. She didn't stop because someone told her to. She stopped because she couldn't walk past someone in pain and do nothing. That decision, made in less than 3 seconds on a rainy Thursday night, changed 2 lives in ways neither of them could have predicted. The city was loud that evening, the kind of loud that swallows people whole. Rain slicked the streets outside the Harrington Grand Hotel, blurring neon signs into watercolor smears along the boulevard. Commuters rushed past with their collars pulled tight and their eyes fixed on nowhere in particular. Nobody was stopping for anything. Nobody except Camille. She had just finished a 9-hour shift. Her feet ached inside her worn-down shoes. Her uniform was pressed but faded at the collar, the kind of detail that tells you everything about a person's situation without them saying a word. She had $43 left from her tips. She'd been counting them in her apron pocket all evening, the way you count things when every dollar means something real. She was almost at the bus stop when she saw her. An elderly woman stood alone beside an idling taxi, one hand gripping the door frame for balance, the other digging frantically through her handbag. Her name was Margaret. She was 71 years old, and right now, she looked like she was about to cry. The driver wasn't being cruel, just impatient, his meter still running, rain drumming on his roof. Margaret counted her notes twice, then a third time. She came up short, and the shame of it moved across her face like a shadow. Before we continue, tell us in the comments what time it is and where you are watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's get back to our story. Camille walked toward her before the thought was even fully formed. "Here, let me," she said, pulling the bills from her pocket. Not all of them, just enough. She paid the driver without hesitation, smiled at Margaret like this was the easiest thing in the world, and gently took her arm before the old woman could protest. "You didn't have to do that," Margaret said, her voice trembling. "I know," Camille said simply. "That's why I wanted to." She didn't notice the man across the street. He had stepped out of a black car about 30 seconds before all of this began. His name was Dominic, 44 years old, net worth somewhere north of 300 million, depending on which quarter you were looking at. He had flown in from Singapore that morning for a board meeting that had stretched brutally into the evening, and now he was here, a little late, a little tired, to have dinner with his mother. He saw the whole thing. He stood perfectly still on the wet pavement, briefcase in hand, watching a woman in a faded uniform give away her own money to a stranger in the rain. Watching her do it like it cost her nothing. Watching his mother reach out and hold Camille's hand with both of hers, gratitude flooding her face in a way he hadn't seen in years. Something landed in his chest that he didn't have a name for yet. He followed them inside. The lobby of the Harrington was warm and gold-lit, the kind of space designed to make you feel that the world outside doesn't exist. Camille guided Margaret to a chair near the entrance, asked a passing colleague for a glass of water, and sat with her for a moment, not because it was her job, but because she clearly wasn't going anywhere until she knew the woman was okay. She spoke quietly, one hand resting near Margaret's on the armrest, not performing kindness, just offering it. Dominic stood at the edge of the lobby and watched his mother laugh at something Camille said. He couldn't remember the last time he had made her laugh like that. When Camille finally stood to leave, Margaret reached into her purse to offer something, a thank you in the only language the moment seemed to allow. Camille shook her head. "Please," Margaret insisted. "What you just said to me is more than enough," Camille told her. "I mean that." She went back to work. Dominic walked to his mother's side, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Margaret looked up at him with soft eyes. "Did you see that girl?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "I saw her." He stayed for dinner. He was distracted throughout. His mother talked about her week, about the neighbor's dog, about a book she was reading, and Dominic nodded at the right moments, but his mind kept drifting back to the woman in the worn shoes who had handed over her own tip money without blinking. He kept thinking about one specific thing, the way Camille had refused the payment. Not with embarrassment, not with false modesty, with something that felt more like a principle. Dignity isn't something you can buy once it's been freely given. He had spent 20 years building a company on the belief that everything had a price. Tonight, that belief felt a little thinner than it had this morning. He found her at the service counter near the end of the evening. She looked up when he approached, polite but guarded, the measured expression of someone who has learned that well-dressed men approaching service staff rarely bring good news. "I'm Margaret's son," he said. Something shifted in her face. Not alarm, more like rearranging a picture she hadn't realized she was holding wrong. "I wanted to thank you," Dominic said. "What you did outside, I saw it." "It wasn't anything," Camille said. "It was to her," he said. "And it was to me." She studied him for a moment, trying to read whether this was going somewhere she needed to be cautious about. He must have understood that, because his next words came quieter. "Can I ask you something? Not as a customer, just as someone trying to understand something." She didn't say yes exactly, but she didn't walk away. He asked her what had made her stop. She thought about it seriously, which he hadn't expected. "My dad used to say that you can always tell what a person is made of by what they do when no one's watching," she said. "I guess I just forgot that someone was watching tonight." A small smile. "Or maybe I didn't think it mattered." He asked about her life. She answered carefully, without self-pity. Double shifts, a younger brother in community college, a mother with bad knees who couldn't work the hours she used to. She told him she had applied to a nursing program twice and deferred both times because the timing was never right, the money was never there, the circumstances were always one thing short of manageable. She said all of this without bitterness. That was the part that stayed with him. He asked if she would consider letting him help. The silence that followed lasted long enough that he thought she was going to say no. "I've worked for everything I have," she said finally. "I'm not interested in owing anyone something I can't pay back." "What if there was nothing to pay back?" She looked at him carefully. "Men like you don't usually think that way." "I know," he said. "I'm starting to think that's been a problem." She didn't accept that night. She told him she needed to think about it, and he respected that more than he could explain. He left his card. She put it in her apron pocket without looking at it. 2 weeks later, she called. Her terms were simple. She would accept support for tuition only. She would continue working her shifts, and no one would know about the arrangement unless she chose to tell them. He agreed to every condition without negotiation, and that, she told him later, was what made her trust him. She enrolled the following semester. What followed wasn't a fairy tale. It was just work, the kind of sustained, unglamorous effort that builds something real. Camille studied on buses and in break rooms, submitted assignments after midnight, and showed up to her clinical rotations with the same steadiness she brought to everything else. Dominic checked in occasionally, briefly, without fanfare, and found himself looking forward to those conversations more than most of the ones in his calendar. His mother was right. Goodness shows up in unexpected places. The changes in Dominic were slower and less visible than Camille's. They showed up in small decisions. In a benefits policy, he pushed through over board resistance. In a mentorship fund, he quietly established for service workers across 3 of his hotel properties. His staff noticed the shift before they could name it. He started asking questions instead of issuing instructions. He started staying longer at the properties, talking to people whose last names he'd never bothered to learn before. He kept a single photograph on the corner of his desk, not of a deal closing or an award ceremony. Just a blurry phone photo someone had taken without realizing it, his mother and Camille laughing together in that lobby, rain still on the windows behind them. 3 years after that Thursday evening, Camille graduated with her nursing degree. Dominic and Margaret sat 3 rows back in the auditorium. Margaret held his arm the entire ceremony. Neither of them needed to say much. When Camille found them afterward in the hall, she hugged Margaret first, long and genuine. Then she turned to Dominic. "Thank you," she said. "Not for the money, for taking me seriously." He nodded once. "You made that easy," he said. She went on to work a children's ward at a hospital 20 minutes from where she'd grown up. Patients remembered her name. Parents asked for her by name. She was exactly as good at it as she'd always believed she could be, If only the circumstances would line up. They had lined up because she'd stopped for an old woman in the rain. Because a man had watched from across a wet street and let himself be changed by what he saw. Because sometimes the smallest moment, $43, a kind word, refusal to be paid back, turns out to be the one that everything else was quietly building toward. Dignity given freely. Lives rebuilt quietly. No announcement necessary. Drop a comment below. What time is it where you are, and what made you click on this story? We'd love to know.